Mr. Puri, is what is the future of Vande Bharat, and has this changed the game for Air India?
Well, first of all, civil aviation, the civil aviation scene post-COVID, after 23rd March, has had many components. First of all, Lifeline Udan. We were able to carry 1,000 tons of essential medical supplies, PPEs, ventilators to different parts of the country. 1,000 tons. We brought in 1,500 tons of medical supplies from outside the country. We started by repatriating stranded Indians from COVID hotspots like Wuhan. Then, after a while, we started Vande Bharat mission.
Correct.
This was on 6th May.
Yes.
When we started Vande Bharat, we had conceptualized this scheme in terms of numbers and coverage as perhaps requiring a total of 190,000 people to be brought back to India. These were the number of people who had registered with our missions and posts abroad, and this was the figure that the Ministry of External Affairs gave us. But you know,
completely off the mark.
No, not off the mark. It was what I call a gross underestimation. because it could also possibly be because initially people thought there is a lockdown complete, there will not be any possibility to travel, and maybe the people who registered were only those who were in dire straits.
Correct. Yeah.
Those who were really desperate. But you know, economic activity needs to go on. People need to travel for compelling reasons. Somebody needs to get to a job, somebody's visa is expiring, somebody has a medical problem, there are bereavements in the family, and what have you, so on and so forth. Now, the latest figure I have is that the number of people carried, both inbound, that is from outside into India and out, has crossed the 1 million mark as of yesterday.
Okay.
We brought back over 900,000 people in different components of the scheme. I mean, the Vande Bharat Air India Express is over 250,000 people brought back. The carriers, the charter operators have carried 500,000 people, which includes foreign charter operators, including Indian charter operator. 2 naval ships have been deployed. People have come across land border. So if you say that this is the largest evacuation in the known period of our history, many times over.
Yeah.
My largest was, I mean, when I look at figures, was Indian operations when we had to bring people back from, you know, Iraq or other places, Gulf, etc. Then the Portuguese carried out some repatriation flights, both civil and military. But these numbers are 4 or 5 times that number.
Yeah.
I mean, the first highest was 190,000.
Which is why perhaps you had the United States putting pressure, saying it wanted a piece of the action, it wanted its own carriers to also fly.
No, I don't think that's true.
Everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to get back.
Well, there is a commercial opportunity.
Yes.
Obviously, whether you are carrying out, surface transportation or air transportation, clearly there is a cost to be incurred, and there is the cost of aviation turbine fuel. You have to pay salaries. Airlines are already under stress, and you have to charge tickets. But I think the singular defining characteristic of the Vande Bharat flights has been that we have run them at nearly cost. Now, let me give you an example. When we started the Vande Bharat flights from the Middle East, or the Gulf, the ticket Dubai to some part of India, I think the lower part was 13,000. Other carriers were bringing in charters at 2.5 times that amount sometimes. Okay. But the lowest charter was at least 1.5 times the amount. So we were able to do it. Just now there's been a problem in Hong Kong. A lot of people stranded. Air India has announced 2 flights, I think on the 4th and 7th of this month. And the Air India is charging 40,000 rupees for an economy class ticket, whereas another airline from the region is charging 89,250. So more than twice the amount.
Yeah.
So you can ask me how has Air India been able to do it? Well, because we have looked at Vande Bharat not as an opportunity for revenue only. I mean, revenue is important because you cannot run an airline on the basis of just goodwill or on the basis of the taxpayers' money. So it has to pay itself. So there was an element of cross-subsidization.
From the US, for example.
Even the US affairs have come down. When we were running economy class flights to the US and pricing the ticket at 1 lakh, others were charging 3 lakhs or thereabout. Now the ticket has come down to 50,000.
Okay.
So we try and ensure that affordability is not only factored in, but affordability is a very essential component of this scheme.
So you mean India to the US right now, we have 50,000 rupee ticket on Air India, even when Delta and United will be allowed to travel as part of the bubble?
No, but you see, then an element of competition comes in. First, for the tickets initially, economy class were about 1 lakh. Then they came down to 70,000. And I'm told that the latest round, my discussion,
Vande Bharat
5, they're going to come down even more.
Okay.
So because there's an element of competition, also now you can plan it much better. Otherwise, you had a situation on one side, the flights were going empty. I mean, they were going empty because people were not allowed into the UAE. So we were only bringing people back or from other destinations. So as it is Vande Bharat, you asked about the future of Vande Bharat. Well, till the virus either completely subsides or atrophies, or we find a vaccine, I believe that civil aviation will have to be conducted under controlled and regulated conditions, which means normal civil aviation. By normal civil aviation, I mean that you can get up in the morning, you have a visa, you can travel to anywhere in the world. No. Most countries are only allowing either their citizens or special category of people to come in. So it's necessary to conduct civil aviation internationally under controlled situations. So we have developed the concept of air bubbles.
Correct.
We've got an air bubble now with the US. We've agreed to air bubbles with France, with Germany, I think with Canada.
UK is pending.
UK is not pending, it's been done, except they don't like to call it an air bubble.
Okay.
They want to call it, I think, a bilateral civil aviation agreement.
Okay.
I've already signed on to it. We're just waiting for them to designate a carrier.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you some breaking news.
I love breaking news.
And this is the first time I think I'm saying this to a distinguished member of the Fourth Estate. We are also working out similar arrangements with countries in our neighborhood.
Okay.
The Foreign Minister and I, the External Affairs Minister and I had a discussion yesterday. And we have requests from some of the countries. But on our own, we would like to have bilateral civil aviation flights with the countries in our neighborhood. Now,
can you tell us which ones?
Well, I'm not announcing it yet, but I'm just giving you in principle. Most of the countries in our neighborhood, we will have bilateral flights going on. The frequency will depend on the demand and our capacity. You see, you must remember that one of the important issues in our ability to plan for these flights is the capacity and willingness of the receiving states. Very often we are told by our state governments that they are not in a position to accept more than a few passengers. There's not only India, it's an other country. Australia, for instance, said that you can bring in planes, but only carrying so many people, and then only to a few places. So we recognize that state governments and other countries have to plan their quarantine arrangements, their other infrastructure. Now, West Bengal has gone into another lockdown. So clearly, in spite of all these difficulties, my figures yesterday, 84,000 people traveled. So, we are beginning to navigate our way through a difficult terrain. And I believe that both the bilateral arrangements with countries in the neighborhood, I can share with you. My own thinking is that we've got UK, France, Germany done. Switzerland, I think, has expressed a desire. Some countries in Central Asia have expressed a desire. With the US, we've got an ongoing arrangement. We're looking at the possibility of doing 1 or 2 places in Africa so that we can aggregate the people who wish to come back. Neighborhood, as I mentioned. And my effort in the coming few days is going to be to try and do these bilateral arrangements with other countries, which are willing, like Japan, for instance. So it is a scene which is dynamic, it is evolving, and it is producing results.
Okay.
Very often, since commercial interests are involved, they have their professional troll armies accompanying them. Why don't you open this? Why don't you open that? Left to me, I would open the whole thing.
But you can't.
I can't. There are health.
But Mr. Puri, given all of this and what you're doing, and especially when you look at the involvement also of other senior members of the government, with all this going on, How are you in the process of still inviting bids for Air India? Should, do you have takers? Should you still be selling Air India? August 31st deadline, you've got
That's for the expression of interest, yeah.
Yeah.
No, look, let's look at Air India. There are two issues to Air India. One is that whenever we have a challenging situation on our hands, without doubt, Air India rises to the occasion.
Yeah.
This one is I think, sui generis, one of a kind. And I think the Air India as an organization, starting from the CMD to every other member of Air India, they performed not only up to expectations, but I would say
beyond,
in many ways beyond expectations.
Yeah.
What we have been able to do with Air India in the last few months, and I take, I can say, a sense of responsibility, because these are not easy decisions to take. We decided that because civil aviation is already under strain, we knew that many airlines are going to close down. We knew that other airlines will, on account of financial strain, which they are subjected to, lay off people. We decided that we were going to try not to lay off anyone. That's the starting point. But that we needed to curtail expenditure. So we managed. I think we brought the operating expenditure of Air India down considerably.
What is considerable?
Well, I think 1,500 crores is a figure I can immediately say per annum we brought the expenditure down. Okay. How we've done it? Large number of rationalization measures. Some of the Air India stations to which the airline was flying were clearly not viable. Not viable. So we have to progressively phase those out. A large component is on salary. Yeah. Air India is the only airline in the world where there was a complete mismatch between the number of people employed and the number of aircraft deployed, etc. So people who were on contracts and their contracts were coming to an end, they can part ways. There will be normal tendency to, even if you don't need a person, keep them on. So we've been pretty strict on that. They have a compulsory, not a what you call a voluntary leave.
VRS, yeah.
Yeah, not VRS is retirement. No, leave without pay scheme. I have emphasized right from the beginning, this is a voluntary scheme. This kind of scheme they've had earlier also. There are 200 eminent sports persons who are employed, who draw salaries but, choose to, lend splendor to the, Air India name. I think the organization is telling them to come to work and etc. Many of them are not in need of employment, but, in the good old days when you were making a lot of money, before the fact that your debt service burden became almost unsustainable. Plus, we've rationalized salaries. Now, I know, some of their salary structures, but I was clear. We will pay what the market bears. For instance, if you were not flying the designated number of hours, you were still earning 70 hours of flying time. Now, we have clearly tried to rationalize that. But I keep saying, we don't lay off anyone, bring the salary structures down to market rates. Look at what another airline, I don't like to name them, which has 50% of our market share. They've laid off 10% of the people, 2,700.
And on a second round of such, Indigo's on a second round of
they've done. We haven't done anything of the sort. The flying crew, for instance, the pilots and all want to see me. I'll be very happy to see them.
Okay.
And then we sit down and talk. And my basic line is, look, these are measures which we've taken to rationalize because of the circumstances we find ourselves.
Mr. Puri, will you still sell will the government, is it still selling Air India? Or
100%. Governments, my line is government should not be in the business of running airlines in the first instance. Secondly, and this is more important, we want to sell Air India as a commercially viable going concern. Not because, so if you curtail expenditure, make it a, economically viable, a lean organization, it is more attractive to buyers. And there is enough interest. Because India and Air India is again a sui generis case. Let me explain. We have today the world's third largest domestic civil aviation market. Okay, we are going to be the third largest market per se in a few years' time. How many countries do you have which have a domestic footfall of 435 million passengers? With just a 7% penetration, we were registering at one stage 17% rate of growth. I'm talking about pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, 5 years we've had double-digit growth. Air India is a flag carrier. Air India flies to 50, 60 destinations.
But is anybody besides the Tatas interested in Air India?
Yes, they are.
What kind? Like the private equity or the other airlines? Because
There's a combination of people. There's a fair amount of interest. And even during COVID, I can share with you, there are people outside. Now you can have 100% FDI which for Air India also. I think Air India today, in terms of the way global civil aviation is going to evolve post-COVID, Air India is a very attractive buy.
okay. Because the other problem is if one of the promoters of Indigo decide to exit, suddenly Air India will be on the block along with India's largest airline, a considerable
Air
stake.
India-
if the promoters don't get along, one of the promoters want to exit.
I have not seen any evidence. It's not my job to comment on it. I have not seen any evidence of this kind of development
No,
impact.
it's not recent. I'm just saying if one of the promoters who are warring decide to
No,
exit.
I think that's best left. Boardroom issues are
Okay.
not for the outside. I think the management is not only capable but is handling it rather well. But you know, airlines the world over will face challenges. Okay, but I think I told you on a similar platform. That's a very interesting situation. The engine manufacturers, the aircraft manufacturers laugh their way to the bank. The airport authorities, airport operators do well. The ancillary, tourist, Uber industry does well. It's only the airline, which because of the peculiar model. But I think we will emerge from COVID much stronger. And I am quite convinced, not quite, I'm convinced that Air India's privatization will not only go ahead, but Air India's privatization process has gained from its
So
performance
you won't
during
need
COVID.
to extend the August 31st deadline for the fourth time.
I don't think we'll need to.
You don't think you'll need to?
We don't need to.
That's a big headline. Mr. Puri, the other thing I want to ask you is that what is the government going to do for the Indian airlines, or are we going to see a failure? Let me put it to you like this. The United States government gave $45 billion to its US carriers. Singapore Airlines, $13 billion. Lufthansa, $10 billion. Cathay Pacific, $5 billion. How are we going to expect our Indian carriers to compete globally?
let me stop.
Compete globally if the government is not.
First of all, airlines don't compete globally because of government handouts. Let's put that aside. I'm willing to have a undergraduate economics tutorial class with you on that. Let's put that aside. Look, if I had a $20 trillion economy like the United States, okay, $20 trillion, and I had money to hand out, that would be a separate discussion. We have pre-COVID a $2.89 trillion economy, okay. If you look at our developmental challenges, I don't think taxpayers' money can be spent to benefit one particular sector like this. But there are other things we can do, and which we've done. I mean,
for aviation?
No, hold on. There's a number of things we've done on aviation. Airport privatization has received a boost. The 30% extra cost incurred in flying through a circuitous route, the rationalization of airspace with defense, that's been done. We are in touch with the finance ministry so that if all industries which are in stress, if they need a one-time restructuring of their loans, etc., we've had discussions. Some of them may take advantage of that. Aviation turbine fuel. I mean, I should not be saying this because I don't want to draw attention to it. Petrol and diesel is at 80 rupees and aviation turbine fuel is at 34 rupees or thereabout. It should remain that way. Many other things that we've done and we will continue to do. But, there is a contrary point of view. Airlines become rich. Individuals who run airlines become rich. And the problem that the airline has created was then sought to be passed on to the taxpayer. We are not that kind of state. Whether you run a business ground
or
in real estate or in airlines, etc., you can't then turn around and the government should bail you out. It's not going to happen. Secondly, let's look at the perspective. When Jet Airways, which was a major operator, when it ceased operation, we had 560 aircraft in the skies. When before COVID broke out, we had 640 aircraft in the sky. We go over these things. I mean, it's not a question of Indian civil.
So you're saying it's for the promoter to also bail out the airline and not the
100%.
government? Is that what you're saying?
It's not the government's job at all. Government can provide a facilitatory ecosystem under which we help each other. But these cannot be a package of assistance which is one company specific. I've seen a lot of reports saying, well, oh, government is going to come out with a scheme which is going to help a company X. This is misinformation deliberately being planted.
So you're basically saying it should be up to the Wadias, it should be up to Rahul Bhatia,
I'm not taking anybody's name.
Ajay Singh, or these are the promoters to save their own airlines, and why should they look at government for handouts?
No, first of all, in fairness, I don't think they've come to us saying, give us a handout. No. In fairness, they have not said that. But I think it's a legitimate of them to ask government to step in to do certain things to help them out. For instance, there are arrangements between lessors and lessees. Okay, every airline is going to somebody from whom you have leased an aircraft and saying, "Bhai, this is no longer viable. Please reduce this thing." Or you go to a bank and say, "Well, but this is not just for the airlines. It also happens for the airports." There's been no revenue stream for most airports. There's been no revenue stream for most airlines for 2 months at least, 2 or 3 months. After that, it started, and for a lot of others, including the hotels. Now, if you were to get into the business of a simple bailout, like, you were saying country X, $5 billion, country Y, $8 billion.
They've also done for the airports. These countries have also done for the airports.
Yeah. Look, the minute we are a $20 trillion economy, and if you and I are around at that stage, maybe we can try and walk down that road.
Okay.
But I have a different way. I think the airline, our thing is to get domestic civil aviation and international civil aviation through these bilateral agreements started.
For domestic civil aviation, Mr. Puri, now that the essential traffic is over, and the latest data does show that the traffic load is coming down, which has also resulted in a lot of airlines.
Coming down or coming up?
It's been coming down, right? It fell below 50%.
Hold on. We started. First it was complete lockdown.
Yeah.
Complete lockdown. We said we'll open 33%.
Yeah.
See, before COVID, on a good day, we had 300,000 people traveling in India, 3 lakh. We opened to 33%. My figures yesterday were 84,000. So we are close to that 33%. If I had to project this prior to this, when we opened up domestic civil aviation, which was I think 25th May, I thought we would have reached 100,000 by now, 1/3. We didn't, because some states went back into lockdown. Back into lockdown. And some states, which were the commercial hubs of the country, where the number of flights were 1,000 a day, they only expect, accepting 50 departures, 50. But that will change, because the demand for travel is going to rise.
You think it will rise because people are getting used to Zoom calls, not doing conference calls, they're not going for holidays. Right now.
I have a different take. I think people want to go on holidays.
So revenge holidays will come.
Not revenge, but instead of flying, let's say, all the way to country X, I think if we take a few good steps, which we are doing, our own domestic tourism infrastructure, it will begin to. I just introduced 2 helicopter Udan flights day before yesterday. Yeah. I mean, if you go to Uttarakhand, I'm just naming it because that's where we did the inauguration. They're beautiful parts of the world. I mean, they've got all the scenic beauty, etc. All we need to do is add some connectivity, which we are doing, and a little more investment in 3-star hotels and so on.
They're broke, the hotels.
Well, they'll start.
How will they start?
Well,
will they see some help from the government?
No. Again, government is not in the business. I mean, I was looking at your industry the other day, the number of TV channels. I mean, if you have to produce a list of people who want money, bailout from the government, I mean, I've seen reports that the press wants a bailout from the government also, okay? But that's not how you do it. You can't go around saying you are under stress.
But a loan recast, for example, would really help the tourism industry, for example.
No.
A loan recast.
Exactly. There is enough money in the system, whether you want to give money to the MSMEs at 2% or a loan, or you want to give to others. Those are measures which are being actively considered, even as we speak. Now, these are not outright grants, because, you can't use taxpayers' money to do that. But to facilitate a turnaround, whether it's restructuring of loans or, some money, a 6-month rollover or other issues, these are all being actively discussed, and they will take place.
Okay.
I mean, the problem is that everybody thinks that this is a stimulus and these measures are one time. The first stimulus package was fairly ambitious. But this is a virus where we are in it for the long haul. It's not like SARS or Ebola, or H1N1. This one looks a little more sinister, even though it has a low mortality rate. But till you get a vaccine and till people get to the they have the ability to live with it, you'll need a little bit of stamina.
Mr. Puri, I'll make this my final question because we're running out of time, and I'm going to ask this one for a lot of consumers who have been writing in to us, basically complaining about how there have been last-minute cancellations for domestic flights because there's not been enough demand. What are they supposed to do? And the airlines, okay, for whatever reason, and the airlines are not giving refunds.
No,
they're not hearing back from the airlines.
Let me assure your people who are asking questions. There are refunds and refunds. If you made the mistake, you mean an airline, made the mistake of booking a flight when a flight was not going to be allowed and you collected money from people, we've issued a directive. You have no option but to refund immediately. But there are other refund cases. For instance, you know,
like if West Bengal cancel.
No, let me complete it. There are Apex, for instance. Apex, you buy a Apex fare 6 months in advance and you get a low fare. If you got one thing like that, and that was something much before this, some of the money has been collected by travel agents, all right, and travel agents and airlines, everything. Look, the matter is before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, as the Minister of Civil Aviation, I made it absolutely clear that we have to put the interest of the consumer up front. Okay? Now, it's not for me to judge what the court is going to say, but we have to devise a system where the consumer is not shortchanged. And we have passed a directive. You know, even during the lockdown period, some international airlines were collecting money.
Yeah.
Right? I have told the DGCA, well, if there is a case like that, you know, proceed as a regulator against those people. On other issues, as I said, because they are sub judice, I am not going to comment. But I think passengers who feel that they are you see, it's like this. Somebody says, all right, you paid for a ticket, but the airline is broke. That's also a fact. Airline is broke, we can't pay you. We give you a credit shell. We can find innovative ways of ensuring that, you see, it's like this. The airlines come to me and tell me, you know, please tell the airport operator to bail us out. I call in the airport operator, he says, sir, you need to bail us out also because we have not had any revenue. So we sit down and devise procedures.
Correct.
But this refund issue, insofar as the ministry is concerned, we are absolutely clear as to where we need to come out.
Okay, so we'll have to, I guess, wait for the Supreme Court verdict, and you have given a directive in some way or the other. They have to make sure the consumers compensated. With that, Mr. Puri, I'd like to thank you for being so candid and giving us this interview. Thank you so
very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.